All right, so we're diving into the startup world today, and let me tell you, it's buzzing. Forget that whole slowdown talk. We are right in the thick of a startup boom.
Yeah, it's really remarkable.
And get this, it's not just a Silicon Valley thing.
Right, not at all.
We're talking nationwide. From Alabama to West Virginia, new businesses are popping up everywhere.
And what's really interesting is that this isn't just some temporary blip. We've seen this huge surge in applications for new businesses, like way higher than before the pandemic, and it's been going strong since 2021.
Hold on a sec, though. How do we know these are actually, real companies and not just people signing up to drive for Uber?
That's a great question. The data we're looking at specifically focuses on these likely employer applications, meaning they're likely to hire employees, not just be, self-employed.
Ah, okay. That makes sense. So it's not just paperwork. They're actually out there hiring people.
Exactly. And there's more, the number of businesses less than a year old is through the roof, which shows that these applications are actually turning into real operational companies.
So the data's pretty clear.
Yeah,
More people than ever are taking the leap and starting their own thing.
absolutely.
We're talking over 30% higher than pre-pandemic levels, according to the Center for American Progress. And they're seeing this across all 50 states. But why now? Did everyone just wake up one morning with $1 million idea?
It's definitely more nuanced than that. I mean, the strong economic recovery we saw post-pandemic definitely played a role, but there's growing evidence that those pandemic relief funds, especially the American Rescue Plan, might have been a big factor, particularly for Black entrepreneurs.
Right, that's a really interesting point. That jump in Black-owned businesses,
Mm.
nearly doubling between 2019 and 2022, is incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
But, starting a business is one thing, but actually making it in this super competitive market is a whole other story,
Yeah.
especially with those giant corporations already dominating so many industries.
Mm.
How can these new startups even dream of competing with that kind of established power?
That's where this whole idea of corporate entrepreneurship comes in. It's fascinating, really. Big companies are starting to realize that they can actually benefit from the innovation and agility that startups bring to the table.
So it's like this mutually beneficial relationship then.
Exactly.
But how does that actually work in practice? I mean, big companies aren't exactly known for being, quick on their feet and taking risks.
Well, it can actually take several different forms. Sometimes it's a strategic partnership, like each company brings their own strengths.
Makes sense.
And other times it's an acquisition where the startup actually becomes part of the bigger company.
Oh, right, like a merger kind of thing.
Exactly. And then there's this growing trend of corporate venture capital, CVC for short, where these big companies set up these dedicated branches to invest directly in promising startups.
Oh, right, like Siemens Next 47 and Intel Capital. They're pouring money into all kinds of cutting-edge stuff.
Exactly. They're investing in everything from artificial intelligence to sustainable energy. It's really quite something.
It's amazing how much money is out there for these startups. But are there downsides for the startups that get involved in these collaborations? I mean, couldn't they get overshadowed or even lose control of their company within such a huge organization?
You're bringing up a really important point. Due diligence is super important for any startup thinking about going down this path.
Right.
The biggest thing is making sure their goals align. They need to be on the same page as the bigger company about where they want to go with this. It's not just about cashing in a big check.
It's about finding the right fit. Right.
Exactly. It has to be a partnership where both sides are genuinely invested in a shared vision.
So you're saying startups shouldn't just jump at the first offer they get, no matter how tempting it might seem.
Exactly. They need to make sure there's that shared understanding of what everyone wants to achieve. And of course, protecting their intellectual property is crucial. Startups have got to negotiate, clear terms that protect their innovations, make sure they have a say in how their technology gets
All
developed.
right, you wouldn't want to see your groundbreaking idea disappear into some corporate black hole. And what about the culture clash? Big corporations and these scrappy startups, they seem like they're from different planets.
You said it. Culture fit can really make or break these deals. Startups thrive on being fast-paced, adaptable. Big corporations, though, often have their ways of doing things, more traditional hierarchies, slower decision-making processes.
Yeah, I can see how that could cause some serious friction.
Absolutely. If they're not careful, those clashes can derail even the most promising ventures.
So it sounds like there's a lot to think about. How do you even measure success in these situations? Because innovation, well, it doesn't always equal instant profits.
You're absolutely right. Traditional corporate metrics, they don't always capture the full picture when it comes to innovation.
Right, it's about more than just the bottom line.
Exactly. It's a long game,
Yeah.
and these established companies need to be ready for that. Trying to force a startup to conform to their existing timelines, it can really stifle creativity and actually slow down the whole innovation process.
It's like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole.
Exactly.
It's almost like we're seeing like a whole new way of doing business. It's not just about crushing the competition anymore. It's about, finding those win-win situations. And speaking of win-win, I was reading about the University of Toronto, apparently. They're becoming a real hotbed for startups.
Oh, yeah, they're doing some really cool stuff up there.
They've got this innovations and partnerships office that helps students and faculty take their research and actually turn it into companies.
It's a great example of how these institutions are stepping up and fostering that entrepreneurial spirit. And they're not just talking the talk, they're putting their money where their mouth is, right? They're providing actual resources, funding opportunities, expert guidance, everything these startups need to get off the ground.
Yeah, it's awesome. And it's not just limited to the tech sector, right?
Nope, not at all.
I read that they're seeing this surge in innovation across all sorts of fields:
Yeah.
healthcare, consumer goods, even financial services.
What's really cool is that unique perspective that universities bring, right? They're
Mhm.
pushing the boundaries of knowledge, exploring all this uncharted territory. It puts them in a prime position to help entrepreneurs turn that cutting-edge research into real-world solutions.
That's a really good point. But I imagine it's a learning curve for both sides, right? Universities and startups have very different ways of operating.
Absolutely. It's a two-way street for sure. Universities, they have to be careful about protecting their intellectual property, while startups, they need to navigate all those regulations, secure that funding, and build a solid team. It's a lot to handle.
Yeah, it sounds like a wild ride.
Hmm.
But connecting with those university resources early on, that could be a game changer for startups even before they're ready to officially launch, right?
Definitely. Early engagement is
Yeah,
key. It gives entrepreneurs a chance to, get a handle on the university's policies, maybe connect with some mentors, and get a head start on securing those resources they're going to need down the road.
makes sense. And speaking of resources, we got to talk about the big one for startups: funding,
Ah, yes, the lifeblood of any startup.
right?
And it's not just about how much money you can raise, it's about finding that right type of investment, and the network that comes with it.
Because those investors, they bring more than just money to the table, right? They've
Yeah.
got connections, expertise.
Oh, absolutely. They've been there, done that. They can open doors you didn't even know existed. We talked about corporate venture capital earlier, but honestly, there's a whole ecosystem of funding sources out there for startups.
Okay, so what are some of those other options? Where can these startups go to find that crucial capital?
Well, there are angel investors.
Mhm.
These are usually, high net worth individuals who are willing to take on a bit more risk, especially in those early stages, in exchange for equity in the company.
So they're like the risk takers, the ones who believe in the vision early on.
Exactly. And then you have venture capital firms who usually come in with bigger investments, but usually at a later stage.
When a startup's got a bit more of a track record.
Right. They're looking for the next big thing, the ones with that hockey stick growth potential.
Ah.
And let's not forget about those less conventional routes like crowdfunding.
Oh, yeah. Crowdfunding has exploded in the past few years.
It's huge now.
Wow.
Platforms like Kickstarter, Indiegogo, they've made it possible for startups to raise smaller amounts of money, but from a lot more people.
It's like the democratization of funding, in a way.
Exactly. And then there are government grants, which can be a lifeline for some startups, particularly those working in specific industries or, meeting certain criteria.
So it's really about finding the right match, right?
Precisely. There's no one-size-fits-all when it comes to funding. It's about finding investors who not only bring that capital, but also that valuable expertise, industry connections, and, that mentorship that can be invaluable in those early days.
Couldn't agree more. And of course, none of this matters if you don't have an amazing team.
Oh, 100%. A startup is only as strong as the people driving it. Building a team, a diverse, talented, passionate team, that's absolutely essential.
That's all about the people,
You
right?
got it. You need that mix of expertise, those fresh perspectives, that shared unwavering belief in the company's vision. It's like the secret sauce for any successful startup.
It's like a startup superpower. So, to recap for our listeners, we've got this wave of new businesses popping up, fueled by a mix of economic factors and this, renewed entrepreneurial spirit. We've talked about the opportunities, the challenges they face, But what does this all mean for someone who's listening right now, even if they're not, like, planning to quit their job and launch a startup tomorrow?
That's the big question, right? And it's a really important one. Whether you're thinking about taking that entrepreneurial leap, you're already working at a startup, or you just want to stay ahead of the curve in this like ever-changing professional landscape, understanding what's driving this startup boom is crucial.
It's changing the game for sure.
It's not just about business either. It's about how we see work, careers, even the future of the economy. This is big picture stuff.
It really feels like we're in a whole new world compared to just a few years ago. I mean, you've got all these new businesses popping up left and right, creating jobs, shaking things up. Where does that leave everyone else? Are we all going to be entrepreneurs someday?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And a complicated one, for sure. But it definitely makes you think that whole traditional career path, go to college, get a job, climb that ladder. It's being challenged like never before.
So is that it then? Is that path like obsolete now? Is
Yeah.
it all about side hustles and being your own boss?
I wouldn't say it's quite so black and white. I mean, yeah, the gig economy is exploding, and there are tons of opportunities out there for freelancing and being your own boss, but those traditional jobs, they're not going anywhere, not anytime soon. They're just, evolving just like everything else.
I see what you're saying. But something definitely feels different. Everyone's talking about being adaptable these days, right?
Yeah.
Like being able to pick up new skills super fast and just being okay with things changing all the time. It's like those are the new must-haves, even for those traditional jobs.
Absolutely. Those qualities are so important now, no matter what you do. Being able to pivot, to be a lifelong learner, to be open to change, those are the skills that'll set you apart in this new world.
It's a lot to keep up with.
Yeah.
So for anyone listening who might be feeling, a little unsure about all this change, what's the one thing they should take away from all of this? How do you make it in this new world of work?
Honestly, embrace it. This whole wave of entrepreneurship and innovation, it's not something to be afraid of. It's creating opportunities that we couldn't have even dreamed of a few decades ago. Whether you're starting your own thing or contributing to someone else's vision, it's a chance to do something you care about, something meaningful, and to be a part of shaping the future.
That's a really good point. What about people who are, like, perfectly happy in their current careers, though? Do they need to be worried about, I don't know, being left behind as the job market changes so fast?
Not necessarily. Even within those more traditional companies, there's a growing understanding that innovation and an entrepreneurial mindset are valuable no matter what your job title is.
Right. Like we were talking about before with those corporate venturing initiatives. Big companies are starting to realize that if they want to stay competitive, they need that fresh perspective that startups bring.
Exactly. They're starting to understand that they need to be faster, more adaptable, more open to new ideas if they want to thrive. So even if you're not out there launching your own company, having that entrepreneurial way of thinking is going to be huge in the coming years.
So how do you actually do that? How do you be more entrepreneurial if you're like in a regular 9 to 5 job?
It's about being proactive, always looking for ways to improve things, even if they're not part of your job description. It's about not being afraid to take calculated risks and being willing to speak up with new ideas, even if they challenge the way things have always been done.
So it's kind of a mindset shift more than anything.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. It's about being adaptable, always learning, and being open to new ways of doing things.
It's all starting to make sense now. This startup boom, it's not just about a bunch of new companies. It's like this fundamental change in how we view work, careers, the whole nature of business.
And we can't forget about the elephant in the room technology. The internet, mobile devices, cloud computing, they've all made it so much easier to start a business, connect with customers, find resources. It's amazing, really.
And it's not just about like tech startups either. Technology is changing everything, healthcare, education, manufacturing, everything.
Exactly. So whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or just starting to think about these things, understanding how technology fits into this new economy is essential.
It's a lot to take in. We've talked about the incredible growth in new businesses, the challenges and opportunities they face, and what it all means for the future of work. It's a lot.
It's a complex landscape and it's changing all the time, but I think the biggest takeaway is this: the future of business is all about entrepreneurship and innovation, and that's creating incredible opportunities for everyone, no matter where you come from or what you do.
So as we wrap up our deep dive today, here's something to think about. If this boom really does reshape the economy, what happens to the idea of job security? That feeling of having a safe career. Is that even possible in a world where things are changing so fast?
That's a great question. It's something we're all going to have to figure out as we go. But instead of being afraid of what's next, I think it's more exciting to embrace the possibilities. The future is being written right now, and every single one of us has the potential to be a part of it.
And that's it for our deep dive into the startup boom. We hope you've enjoyed this journey into the world of entrepreneurship and innovation. We've covered a lot of ground, and we hope you'll keep exploring these ideas and find your own path to success.